Shalom, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Journey Through Torah. This week we are in Parsha Yitro. The name of Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, bears the name of this portion. Interesting, though, because in this portion we have what we are commonly call the Ten Commandments. Why would this portion be named Yitro when it's something as important as the Ten Commandments? You know, when Yahweh spoke from heaven to his people, right? I mean, why wouldn't you say, hey, this is the portion with the Ten Commandments? But instead, the name of this portion is called Yitro. Well, there's a few different things that we find on the Midrash that talk about it, but we're not going to be able to get into all of those today. One thing that's given here is it kind of gives a little bit of a place of honor to someone who is not descendant of Israel, is not part of the people of Israel, but yet comes to worship the God of Israel. And actually, after their deliverance, Yitro was the first one to make offerings to Yahweh and proclaim his goodness and proclaim his name and to bless for the deliverance that he gave to his people Israel. So there is a place of honor that needs to be seen here in regards to Yitro, but there's a few other things that we learn in this portion as well. Like I said, this is the portion that has the Ten Commandments in it as well. But before we even get that far, let's address how the people got there. You know, they've been set free. They've been in Mitzrayim. They cried out. Yahweh delivered them, the plagues, right? And all these things. They brought them out with a great and mighty hand, brought them through the water and drowned Pharaoh and his army. And Israel broke out in prophetic song and just this amazing thing. Then 3 days without water, they had this amazing experience where Yahweh gave them water. You know, made the waters, the bitter waters sweet and showed how he was going to provide for them along the way. And they've already experienced some really amazing things, right? So when they get to the mountain, what's their state of mind? How are they, as they approach the mountain where Yahweh told Moses at the burning bush, your sign that I have sent you is when you bring the people out, you're going to bring them back to this mountain. What is their mindset as they get ready to approach? And as Yahweh says, I'm going to come down there and I'm going to meet with you. Tell the people of Israel to prepare themselves. One of the things that we find is that Israel said, okay, we have 3 days to prepare ourselves, right? So they're going to prepare themselves, but they really weren't prepared. You know, there's an amazing thing there. Are we really ever prepared to really come face to face with Yahweh? And I think as prepared as we think we could be, the answer is no. No, we're not. So there's some really neat things we're going to see here. So we're going to jump to chapter 19. And chapter 19, we're going to go to verse 1 and 2. So in the third new moon, it's the third month, after the people of Israel had gone out of the land of Egypt, on that day they came to the wilderness of Sinai. And they set out from Rephidim, and they came into the wilderness of Sinai, and they encamped in the wilderness. There Israel encamped before the mountain. The word, therefore, encamp is chana, which means to incline or like pitch a tent, literally to encamp. You may remember talking about Jacob coming across two encampments. Machanaim came across two encampments when he was coming out and preparing to go into the land. So here we have another picture of Israel represented in the wilderness, and we have encampments being mentioned here. But there's something interesting about how this is mentioned. At first it says there they encamped. The word is vayechanu, and then it says there Israel encamped. It's vayechan sham. So that's two different tenses of the same word, but it's still talking about the same people. So what are we really looking here? Well, they encamped twice. It's mentioned twice that they encamped. The first says Israel camped, vayechanu. That's plural, right? So this suggests that they camped in a sporadic fashion, here, there, wherever, right? So they camped, and they're just wherever they are, that's where they are. You know, no real designated order. They're just there. But then it says when they got to the mountain of Sinai, when they came there and they prepared themselves and they encamped, the word is singular, vayechan sham, and there they camped. So the word vayechan, it's singular that's given there. So this suggests they were more organized, more properly aligned, that they were working as one entity. Let me put it this way: one body, one people. So as they were coming out of Mitzrayim, they all had this individual identity, and they didn't lose that. But yet when they came to the mountain, they stood before Yahweh as one people. Even though they collectively had their own name, they were all part of their own tribes, they all have their own certain personalities and characteristics. Yahweh redeemed each and every one of them. He brought them all out, but they're standing before him as a people, as a nation of Yahweh. And one of the things this can teach us is that when we prepare ourselves to be a covenant people, this means we put our lives into order. And it's not a matter of, oh, get your life in order, then come to Yahweh. No. You approach Yahweh and let him put your life in order. Okay? So it comes in, there's order in there. We live by his design. We live by the ways that he has set as a path of life and a path of blessing that is for us. We are learning where we belong and how we can walk in the blessing of covenant and life that Yahweh is providing for us. Okay. When he redeems us, we know how to live for ourselves. We know how to serve Pharaoh. Okay. But he brings us out. And we're like, okay, now how do I walk in this relationship? I've never done this before. And so he says, no, if you are my people, this is how you walk with me. This is how you worship. These are the things that are given, right? So if all this is there are one people standing before the mountain, it kind of leads to the question. So when Yahweh spoke and he gave his Torah to the people, was this only for the Jewish people? Now, somewhat of a trick question. Judah was one tribe of the multiple tribes, one tribe of the 12 that were there. Okay. So it's not just for Judah. It was for Israel. Okay. Israel as a nation, Israel as a people. So a better question would be, well, what if I'm not a descendant of Israel? Is the Torah for me? Many people today believe that, well, Israel has to keep the Torah. A Jew has to keep the Torah. But if you're not a Jew, you don't have to, but you could look at it and see if you kind of want to or not, but you don't need to. I'm here to tell you the word of Yahweh from the very beginning to the very end. The word of Yahweh is one word from one Elohim, one God, one Yahweh. It is one word, and it is for one people, a people whom he redeems. And if you are redeemed, then you are part of a people whom he has placed his name. You're set apart. You're his people. And so because of that, then you are, if you're not part of Israel, part of covenant that Yahweh has made here, then you are grafted into a place of covenant and not replacing anyone, but you are grafted in alongside with, to be sharers with. Put it this way. Once you have been brought near to Yahweh, are you now still considered a foreigner and a stranger? Or once you have been brought near to Yahweh, are you considered his? Well, if we are his, if you have been redeemed, then you should care what he has to say about your life and how he desires for you to live. This is how we approach the word. We do not observe anything in the Torah in order to earn anything from Yahweh, but it's never been that way. The Torah was taken to heart by a people who were in covenant with Yahweh and set apart to him. And he already redeemed. So the Torah is observed as the heart of Yahweh, as a people who are set apart to Yahweh. Go to Ephesians chapter 2, and the whole chapter is good, but going down to verses 11 through 13, it says, therefore remember that at one time you Gentiles in the flesh, called the uncircumcision by what is called circumcision, which is made but in the flesh by hands. Remember, at that time you were separated from the Messiah, alienated from the commonwealth of Israel, strangers to the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. But now in Messiah Yeshua, you who were once far off have been brought near by the blood of Messiah. So the question is, if you were far off, what were you far off from? And if you were brought near, what are you brought near to? And your first answer may be, well, you brought near to Yahweh, brought near to Elohim. And you know what? You're right. But that's not exactly what it says. That's kind of like another thing that's given here. He says, what you are far away from specific things. What does he say you were far away from? In verse 12, at that time you were alienated from the commonwealth of Israel because you were separated from the Messiah. So you were alienated from the commonwealth of Israel, strangers to the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. So now in Messiah Yeshua, you are no longer alienated from the commonwealth of Israel. If you're not alienated from the commonwealth of Israel, what are you? Grafted in to be alongside with the commonwealth of Israel, part of the people of Israel. You are no longer a stranger to the covenant that had promise in it, and you are no longer without hope because you have the Messiah. So you were far away, but now you are brought near into a place of covenant relationship to a people who are set apart. So the word was proclaimed, and he said, I want to give you these words, do these things. And Moshe said, Yahweh wants to speak with you to the people. And what happens? Exodus 19, verse 8. All the people answered together and says, all that Yahweh has spoken, we will do. And Moshe reported the words of the people to Yahweh. Now, notice this, not just I will do, but we will do. The people are answering, individuals are answering, but collectively as one voice, they are answering. We will do. We need to live lives that are set apart to Yahweh. We need to live lives for his kingdom. And you may have heard someone say, well, there's no way one person can keep all those commandments. You're right. There is no way one person can keep every commandment. It is impossible. You know why? Because they're meant to be kept in a community. Some of the commandments cannot be fulfilled by other people. How are some of these examples? There are some commandments specifically to women. There are some specifically to men. There are some specifically to Aaron and his sons, and some are specifically to the Levites. Some are for temple service. Some are for in the land. Some are for outside of the land. Some are for kings. So again, there's no way one person can fulfill all of the Torah. However, that does not mean that we do not walk in our part of it. We walk in the part that Yahweh has given to us. And together as a community, together as a body, as a people of Yahweh, we keep the word together. Okay, so again, where did Yahweh give instruction? The word Torah means to teach or instruct, by the way, not just it's translated as law, but it means to teach or instruct as well. So where was it given? Was the Torah given to the people of Israel in the land of Israel? The answer is no. No, it was not. The Torah was given to a people, and the people were redeemed beforehand. They were redeemed outside of the land, and then he gave them the Torah outside of the land. Then he brought them to the land. They had to walk in faith in the promise of the word to walk into the promise literally. So what does that mean for us? A couple interesting things. Exodus 19:20, Adonai came down on the Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain, and Adonai called Moshe to the top of the mountain, and Moshe went up. So why Sinai? Why not waiting till Israel? Why not already in Israel? One interesting thought is this. The reason why the Torah was not given to the people in the land of Israel was so as to not give us a pretext to claim that since this law was given in the land of Israel, Gentiles had no share in it. It was not given in the land specifically because it was given outside the land. So let me paraphrase it. So that whosoever will could come and enter into a place of covenant. Now that kind of changes things a little bit, doesn't it? In the commentary they call the Torah, it says something very interesting about this. It says this present Sidra, this present Torah portion in this book that we're reading, Yitro, contains the Ten Commandments, bears the name Yitro, a former idolatrous Midianite priest. This clearly demonstrates that the Torah does not belong solely to those of Jewish descent. In fact, it is the universal law indirectly addressed to all men. See that? For all of mankind, the word of Yahweh was given and is readily there for us to receive and walk in, to have a place of relationship with Yahweh. Continuing, the Torah itself never refers to the Ten Commandments as mitzvot, commandments, but as devarim, statements or words. We see in Exodus 34:28, Deuteronomy 4:13, Deuteronomy 10:4. And a commandment assumes the presence of those whom it addresses and relies upon their acceptance. Without followers, the commandment is useless and becomes nothing more than a relic of the past. This is not true of the 10 statements. Whether they are obeyed or not, these laws remain as they were spoken. They endure as the words of Yahweh, the expression of the one true permanent and unchangeable. So the things that Yahweh said, even though it's a matter of, I believe, anything that Yahweh tells us, that he asked of us to do, it's not just begging us to do it. No, I believe anything he states to us is his desire should be received like it's a command. This is what Yahweh desires for us, so therefore we're going to do it, right? But when it comes to what we call the 10 Commandments, interestingly, it doesn't say, and these are the things that Yahweh commanded Moshe. No, these are the things that Yahweh spoke, which kind of puts a couple things in mind. One is, how do we receive the words of Yahweh? Do we receive his words as, oh, they have to be commanded, and or like, if it's not commanded, I don't have to do it? Or is it just a matter of, these are the statements that Yahweh has said for us? Anything that he tells us, we will receive and take to heart, because anything that he says to us is an expression of his heart, his life, and his character. And so that's how we walk with him. We hear his voice, he's written it for us, and we walk in the ways, which goes back to the very first of the 10 Commandments. Different people talk of different things. How do you say the 10 Commandments? Well, you have no other gods before me. Okay, but technically, in the traditional Jewish reckoning of that's not the first commandment. The very first commandment is about relationship, as it should be. And what's the difference? Because the first one is Exodus 20, verses 1 and 2. Yahweh spoke, God spoke, Elohim spoke all these words, saying, I am Yahweh your God, which have brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. So, very first thing that's mentioned here is a matter of relationship. And we see something interesting in this, okay, where it says, then God spoke these words, saying, I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. So the very first where it says God spoke, it's Elohim. So Elohim spoke and said, Enochi Yahweh Elohecha. So there's two expressions here. One is showing like formality, and the other intimacy. One justice, one grace. How are we doing this? Elohim, it's like a formal title. It's not really a name. It's a title. And Elohim in other places are used for someone in a place of authority, for rulers or for judges or something like that, right? Something just authority-wise. And there's nothing wrong with that. He is our Elohim, right? But then he says something interesting. Elohim spoke. So this is a matter of authoritative, right? Elohim spoke. The one who created spoke, is speaking to us. Then he says, Enochi Yahweh Elohecha. Enochi Yod-He Vav-He. Revealing his name, revealing himself, his life, his character, his goodness, his grace, his mercy, revealing these things to us. And then he relates again, Elohecha. It's the same word for Elohim. Okay, your God is Elohecha. So I am Yod-He Vav-He, your Elohim, is what he's saying. So again, we see pictures here. Yahweh is gracious, he is merciful, he is compassionate, he is kind, but he's also just, and he is true. And these two things do not conflict one another, and he is fully both. All of these things together. So the very first and most important thing is to understand and remember that he is Yod-He Vav-He, our Elohim. That's relationship. That's saying he is our Elohim. He is Yod-He Vav-He, and he is my Elohim. He is the one that I serve. He is the one that I belong to. He is the one that I am in covenant with. That's a place of relationship. I have been redeemed. I am his. Because I am redeemed, I'm going to receive his word. What's the requirement to truly walking wholeheartedly in the Torah? Redemption. To be redeemed, to be a people in covenant with Yahweh. If he has set you free, and if he has freed you, and you are his, then you will follow him. If we confess that he is my Elohim, even as he declared himself, right? He says, I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. This is my name. This is how I'm to be remembered forever. This is what Yahweh told Moshe. So if we cannot confess that he is Yod-He Vav-He, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and God of Jacob. This is the one that I serve. If we cannot confess that, then what are the 10 sayings going to do for us? If we don't even have that place of relationship with him, what do we really even bother with anything else that's in the word? See what I mean? If we have a place of being redeemed, then we need to walk and understand to learn his ways, to learn his heart. We see a few places in here. Exodus 24:12 says, Yahweh said to Moshe, come up to me in the mountain, and there I will give you tables of stone and a law of the commandments which I have written, that you may teach them. Isaiah 2:3 says, many people shall go and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. Micah 4:2, and many nations shall come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the law will go forth from Zion, and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. See this? We will learn to walk in his ways. We will learn his word. Put it this way. Yeshua says we're his sheep, right? Well, if we are his sheep, then we need to learn to hear his voice. Where have we seen the voice of Yahweh given to us? Well, at Mount Sinai, yeah, and in Yeshua, yeah, but these two things do not contradict. In John 5:44-47, we read Yeshua speaking. He says, how can you trust? You're busy collecting praise from each other instead of seeking praise from God only. But don't think it is I who will be your accuser before the Father. Do you know who will accuse you? Moshe, the very one whom you have counted on. For if you really believe Moshe, you will believe me, because it was about me that he wrote. But if you don't believe what he wrote, how are you going to believe what I say? In other words, if you don't truly believe what Moses wrote, if you don't truly believe that that is the word of Yahweh, then you really can't believe the words of Yeshua, because the things that Moshe wrote were about Yeshua. But the other side of that's just as true. If you say, no, I'm only going to believe what Yeshua said, I'm not going to believe anything that Moses wrote, you can't say that, because Yeshua is saying is the things that Moses wrote that testifies of him. So if you're going to believe what Yeshua said, you have to believe what Moses wrote too. And he didn't say, well, the things that Moses wrote are irrelevant and gone and done away with. No, because it's the things that Moses wrote that showed who he was. So again, these things do not contradict. And even down to Yeshua being our example. I mean, aren't we supposed to do the things that he did? Walk as he walked, right? Well, how did he walk? What are some of the things that he did? And yeah, you have the signs, wonders, and miracles and these amazing things, right? Great. But don't forsake the other things as well. You know, Yeshua on Shabbat, you find testimony multiple times, as his custom was. He went to the synagogue on Shabbat. He met and prayed with the people. He kept the Moedim. He kept the festivals. I mean, all of these things that we're seeing there. Some other people testimony in Scripture. Solomon, in Ecclesiastes 12:13, says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. In other words, after everything's been said and done, this is the thing to remember, right? What is it? Fear God, keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Solomon said, after everything else and all the everything he's experienced, all the ups and downs of life, all the wisdom that he's attained through life, he said, the important thing is the conclusion of everything. Fear God, keep his commandments. This is the whole duty of man. Yeshua, John 14:15, Yeshua says, if you love me, you will keep my commands. John 14:21, whoever has my commands and keeps them is the one who loves me, and the one who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love him and reveal myself to him. John 15:10, Yeshua says, if you keep my commands, you will stay in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and stay in his love. Paul didn't contradict this. In 1 Corinthians 7:19, Paul said, being circumcised means nothing, being uncircumcised means nothing. What means something is keeping God's commandments. Acts 24:14, but this I admit to you, I worship the God of our fathers in accordance with the way which they call a sect. I continue to believe everything that accords with the Torah and everything written in the prophets. Acts 25:8, Paul spoke in his defense, and he said, I have not broken the Torah of my people, and I have not done anything against either the temple or the emperor. Peter, 2 Peter 2:21-22, says, for it had been better for them not to have known the way of righteousness than after they have known it to turn from the holy commandment delivered to them. See, the holy commandment and the way of righteousness? But it has happened unto them according to the true proverb. The dog has turned to its own vomit again, and the sow what has washed to her wallowing in the mire. John, what did John say about this? 1 John 2, 3 through 7 says, and hereby we know that we know him, if we keep his commandments. And he that says, I know him, and keeps not his commandments, is a liar, and the truth is not in him. But whoso keeps his word, in him, verily is the love of God perfected. Hereby we know that we are in him. He that says he abides in him ought himself also to walk, even as he walked. Brethren, I write no new commandment to you, but an old commandment which you have had from the beginning. The old commandment is the word which you have heard from the beginning. See that? Love one another, and this is the word that you have had from the beginning. 1 John 5, 2 and 3 says, by this we know that we love the children of God, when we love God and keep his commandments. For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous. 2 John 1, 4 says, I rejoice greatly that I found of your children walking in truth, as we have received a commandment from the Father. And 2 John 1, 6, and this is love, that we walk after his commandments. This is the commandment, that as you have heard from the beginning, that you should walk in it. Continuing in the book of Revelation, right? The revelation of Yeshua, right? What does it say? Revelation 12:17. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed. Well, who is that? Those who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Yeshua. Revelation 14:12. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Yeshua. Revelation 22:14. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life and enter in through the gates into the city. So the 10 words, the 10 sayings, the things that Yahweh has commanded, the things that he has given and said to us, right? Well, can you find them in the New Testament? Can you find them in the Besserah, in the Gospels? Can you find them in the Brit Hadashah? Can you find them in there? Well, yeah, absolutely. Some people say, well, no, unless it's explicitly said in the New Testament, we don't have to worry about it. But guys, you can't do that, because the foundation of the Tanakh, the Torah, the prophets, and the writings, is everything for the foundation of the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament. And there are things that are there that are quoted and are said and alluded to, but it's not maybe directly given exactly as we see it. So we don't see because we don't know what we're looking for, right? So just here's a few examples. First commandment, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve. Matthew 4:10. 2, little children, keep yourselves from idols. That's 1 John 5:21. And for as much then as we were the offspring of God, we ought not to think that God has like a gold or silver or stone graven by art or man's devices. Acts 17:29. 3, that the name of God and his doctrine be not blasphemed. That's 1 Timothy 6:1. 4, for he spoke in a certain place of the seventh day on this wise, and God did rest on the seventh day from all his works. So there remains therefore a rest, keeping of a Sabbath, to the people of God, for he has entered into his rest, and he also has ceased from his own works as God did from his. Hebrews 4:4, 9, and 10. 5, honor your father and mother. Matthew 19:19. 6, thou shalt not kill. Romans 13:9. You shall not commit adultery. Matthew 19:18. 8, you shall not steal. Romans 13:9. 9, you shall not bear false witness. Romans 13:9. And 10, you shall not covet. Romans 7:7. This is not like an exhaustive list, but again, you can find them there. They are in there. All right. So what are some of the things we're looking at for one another? As we come and we approach Yahweh, let us be mindful that yes, he has redeemed you. Yes, he has a relationship with you. Yes, it needs to be personal. It must be. But he has called you to be part of a people. So as we approach him, be thankful and grateful that he has redeemed you, but also be mindful that you're not alone. You're part of a people of Yahweh. And we need to approach as a body. We need to approach together and live in the kingdom. Seek first the kingdom of Yahweh and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you, right? So we need to search and operate in the kingdom of Yahweh. And even down to Yeshua's prayer for his disciples in John 17. What did he pray for? That they may be one as you and I are one. not just one with Yahweh, but one with one another as well. And so these are the things that we need to do. With our eyes set to Yah, with our eyes set to Yeshua, we need to be mindful that we are a body and lock arms with the people next to us and around us and keep ourselves centered to Yahweh, with our hearts and our minds set to Him, to walk in His ways, to hear wholeheartedly His heart for us so that we can receive it and walk in His ways. Why? Because this is a path He desires for us. This is a path where He said will bless us if we follow Him. So let's follow Him and let's learn to walk in His ways. All right? Okay, guys, that's all I have for you today. I pray this has been a blessing to you. I pray this encourages you. I pray it challenges you as well. If these teachings have been a blessing to you, then please share them. Help us out. Share them on whatever avenue that you watch or you listen. Share them. Help continue to get this out there, because if it's blessed you, it's probably going to bless somebody else too, right? So it's been a blessing to you. Please share it. And if this has blessed you, then please also consider making a donation to help us to continue making these videos and putting them out there. There is some costs that are involved in doing it. So if you can, please consider making a donation to help us with that venture and help continue to make these and put them out there. All right. So guys, until next time, be blessed and be a blessing. Shalom.